right, this is development log 2 for Jam Launch. We'll start by playing a couple games that I made at Jams in the past couple months. I'll talk about the issues that came up during those jams and the kinds of things I want to add to the Jam Launch add-on to make certain types of common multiplayer problems easier without being excessively abstracted and opinionated. And we'll talk about some of the new features in Jam Launch and some of the upcoming features. So without further ado, we'll play Ultimate Demon Attack, which is a game from the Global Game Jam that I made on a team with Simon, Jalen, and Wendu. The theme of the game jam was Make Me Laugh, so we tried to make it a little over the top. We tried to make a 3D multiplayer game. It worked out pretty well. Obviously, in a jam, not everything always goes exactly to plan, and there's a couple things that are rough around the edges, but we'll just go through that. So we based this around a dream that Simon had about trying to find his cat. So we pet cats to stay lucid, and you don't pet strange cats. And so if there were other people playing this with me, the other players would be cats, and they would be the strange cats. And if you petted the strange cats, you would turn into a cat. So we pet a cat, but this isn't our cat. We need to find our cat. Oh, he almost got away under the wall there. Okay. We found our cat. But we were the cat the whole time. And then once we're a cat, we can vandalize the walls. Yeah. But we can't just spam this mechanism. So eventually we run out of paint. So we gotta go around and collect the paint. Let's see here. Let's get a lot of paint. And yeah, so it just sort of becomes a graffiti game. And yeah, it was really fun. Wendu made these cat models and the human model really quickly. It was me and Simon tried to get the world set up really quickly at the end once we had done all the mechanics and whatever. It's a game jam game. It's a lot of fun to make. And it was actually Jam Launch was really easy to use throughout the process, right? So really the thing that was hard was the multiplayer programming, right? So doing the RPC calls correctly, making sure that the mechanisms for having the right player control the right thing were all set up correctly. So really not a lot of issues with the deployment and everything working in the back end. It was all the actual game programming that was tricky. So let's get on to the next one. So that was for Global Game Jam. That was with the team. I also, a few weekends back, made a game just on my own to try to, again, test out Jam Launch, make sure it was working well. And I just spent a few hours one afternoon trying to make something and trying to, again, sort of see what the common problems are that one might encounter when they're trying to make a multiplayer game, especially if they're trying to make it really quickly, right? So one thing to show off in this one is we have the new default UI, right? So there's a new UI that's a little bit nicer by default. And the best part about this UI is you can just replace it completely. So as you might have seen in other videos, there's the Jam Connect node, which sort of creates this UI automatically for you to initialize all the lobby connections or the server provisioning or whatever. But sometimes you might want to make it your own, right? You want to theme it to the game, right? So I made a nice default one, I guess, for game jams and stuff, when you don't really have time to make all the UI your own, I tried to make it so that you could easily have a background, right? So you notice like the cloud background was there. With the Ultimate Demon Attack one, the only way we got the demon background thing was by hacking away at the in the actual add-on, right? And I wanted something where you could just throw the Jam Connect node on there without changing anything in the Jam Launch add-on, and still have like some level of customization if you were working really quickly. Uh, but then also have the ability to replace it. So yeah, that was the new UI. And then so this game, again, it was a sort of an experiment and trying to just really quickly put something together. It was sort of like the same kind of tedious things. It took up all the time, right? Like figuring out how to get the different players to uh, spawn and be controlled correctly and interact with the environment correctly. There were a couple idioms in this one that were kind of nice, like um, so with a lot of with authoritative multiplayer, and really like I think just one of the better ways of doing the multiplayer is where you have the client's just kind of sending commands. And in this case, we have sort of like these conditional commands, right? So we can, if the little floating island thing has moss, we can take the moss. But if it doesn't have the moss, we shouldn't be able to take moss, right? So we took the moss, so now we can't take the moss. Um, and the server should, like, we as a client, we shouldn't be able to just like take moss even if we're not allowed to. So the way that works is there's sort of like whenever you're interacting with something as the player, the server is kind of being like, oh, okay, an interaction can happen. We'll send that interaction, like an ID for that interaction to the player. And then if they actuate it, right? So if we take the moss, it will um, it will then do the logic on the server to take the moss away or whatever, and then synchronize that, but the player won't be able to just send that action arbitrarily. It's sort of conditionally generated and then like sort of listened for on the server. Um, so that was the main like little nifty idiom that made this game work. So we bring moss, and then it wants water. There's no way to bring it water now, though. I hope to work on this game a little bit more because I kind of, it was like after the first few hours when I finally got it going, it was like, it was already time to stop. But I feel like I have some ideas of how to expand on this mechanism. The idea was going to be that like these islands, you would be kind of putting things in, like so you could combine things, and then over time they might change. And then I was thinking of turning this into sort of like an example of how the data API can be used in Jam Launch between sessions. So what you could do is you could have it so that like there would be states of these islands, and you could like plant things or. All right, sorry, had to take a call. But anyways, yeah, I forgot what I was talking about, but this game, Birds 2. Yeah, and basically like more multiplayer mechanisms that might be useful to abstract. I've been sort of discovering as I worked on these projects. And both of these projects are open source. They're on GitHub. Um, so you can get Alfred Hitchcock Presents Birds 2, The Secrets of Sky Kingdom Prelude, Game of the Year Edition. On Hello Adam Birds 2, you can get Ultimate Demon Attack, Hello Adam Ultimate Demon Attack 5000. And like they were game jam games, so it's it's a little sloppy, but maybe if you're also working on multiplayer stuff and you want to see how a certain mechanic was done, might be useful to reference that. If you're not into that, like I said, hopefully some of these mechanisms I'm going to be able to abstract into nodes in Jam Launch that you'll be able to use in any game, whether or not you're using Jam Launch, to do things like buffered synchronization for like smooth movement, or maybe like input synchronization stuff. Yeah. So Anyways, these projects done. Um, Another thing that I was working on was peer-to-peer functionality in JM Launch. So the first thing I worked on was the authoritative server. Um, for a number of reasons. I mean, I think some of the games I want to work on still kind of are going to revolve around the multi-game or the authoritative server. But peer-to-peer is really interesting, right? Because it's a lot cheaper to do, right? You don't have to have um, you don't have to have a provision server. You don't have to have provisioned compute running and doing all the computing for the game, right? One of the peers or all the peers are collectively doing the game logic, and you just have to do a little bit of signaling in the beginning to make sure all the peers can connect to each other. So, anyways, the JM Launch peer-to-peer is implemented, right? It's live now. You can use it if you're on the platform. The way I implemented it is the host sets up a session via API gateway in AWS. I'm still using the JWT auth, right? So a lot of the solutions you see for WebRTC out there, or the signaling servers, they don't actually do authentication, or they're not really secure solutions for doing this, and you're not really verifying who's who when they sign up, right? It's like, can you be sure that? I mean, it's like maybe this is like paranoid of me, right? But it's like I feel like these kind of things, it doesn't hurt to just do it right out of the gate. So in order to even start trying to connect to a session, the clients need to provide the JWT, the JSON Web Token, or the game JSON Web Token. The clients use those. They set up the WebRTC signaling logic, right? So this peer-to-peer thing will work in your browser and everything because WebRTC. You do need the WebRTC GD extension, which you can get from the asset store in order to work with native clients and not just in the browser. And basically what happens is after the signaling gets set up, after the lobby gets sealed and the game starts, the WebSockets just close down and the games are communicating with each other at that point. So the players are connected to the host. Anyways, so yeah, peer-to-peer, JM Launch peer-to-peer, it's there. And it's going to enable some other things down the road, which I think I'll talk about near the end. Anyways, so there's also some updates in the editor plugin. I added Android export support, and I also changed the exports to happen locally instead of on the build server. This is useful for speed, useful for cost, but then also it makes it so that it's more flexible because you're just doing the direct Godot exports, right? So you're just you can sort of see more clearly now and change things like the export presets that are being used to create the server or the clients, which then enables you to do things like the Android exports without needing to have the Android stuff all provisioned and configured or whatever and synchronized across your development environment and whatever cloud build thing would be happening, right? It's just that there wasn't a way for me to do cloud building in a generic enough way to actually be useful for how flexible the export system actually is in Godot. So anyways, yeah, now so we can do more platforms, right? We can do Linux, Windows, Mac, web. I don't have any iOS devices to test on. So I haven't really, and I don't have much experience with that. If anyone's like really, really interested in iOS, I guess let me know, and maybe I'll be able to start working on integrating that in. So we can also now disable certain things, right? So say we only want to make a web and a Linux export for a peer-to-peer game. I think I might have to change this if I do this. Okay, so web and Linux export, and then so we repair this release, and then that's also then much faster to export because we don't have to build everything that we need, right? The cloud exports usually took about a minute between all the provisioning and the exports and stuff. This, only took like 10, 15 seconds that time. And now we can see we have this new release with just a Linux and a web build. We can make it private or public. We can go to the download page, download the clients, play in the browser. Oh, and this is a peer-to-peer game. Yeah. Anyways, we don't have to go through all that. So again, with all of this, I think probably by the end of the month, maybe a little bit later, depending on if I try to squeeze in a few more features or add anything else. I'm probably going to change the way the pricing works. So right now it's the subscription that's $20 a month. That was sort of like a placeholder, trying to see, if someone was actually really interested in trying to use this, they can subscribe, and then, I'll know that they actually really care about this product, right? I don't want to add like free things, because I mean there's already like people trying to like abuse the API, or trying to abuse the like checkout process, or trying to get access to things that they shouldn't be trying to get access to. I don't want to deal with like giving people free access and then like letting them wreak havoc on the systems that other people are trying to use in good faith. But I mean, I think like I want to try to make the pricing more reflective of what's actually costing me money, right? So like I said, when I was in the first development log, I'm trying to make this sustainable. $20 a month, like it doesn't make sense for a couple of reasons, right? Because it's like a lot of times, if I'm not using it one month, right, it's like, why would I want to pay that $20 that month, right? It's like it's sort of limiting the scope to people that want to be using it every month, or like very, very frequently. And then on the flip side, right, if someone's using it a lot, right, so if someone's provisioning like hundreds of servers like every day, or it's like that actually costs probably more than $20. So I sort of like this has always been sort of like a temporary thing. So I think what I'm going to do is change it to like a credit-based system, out of like respect for the people who were bold enough to sign up for the subscription when it was subscription based. That subscription money will convert into credits at a very favorable ratio. So anything that you've been paying for your subscription will probably turn into like a 2 or 3x multiple of that in credits. So like, yeah, I want to make sure the people who signed up with that first model won't get, well, like we'll be getting a very good deal out of this change, because they believed in the platform early. Anyways, so yeah, so hoping to keep chugging along on this stuff, hoping to add a few more components to make the game jams better after having some experience with the game jams. And yeah, hoping to keep making more features that people are interested in, and that will, hopefully make it so that people will be sharing their multiplayer projects on the Discord channel sometime soon. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, join the Discord, ask questions there. I try to be pretty responsive, and that's where I post most of my updates throughout the week or throughout the month. Great. Until next time.